Hey fifth graders, this is the start of your Monday video. What we're going to do today is review for the test you have tomorrow. So we're going to be on pages 18 through 19 in your hardback book. We're going to do numbers 20 through 24, 29 through 31, and 37 through 39. So let's look at these together real quick. 20 through 24 is finding the missing number. What these are working on is your addition properties and rules of subtraction. So if you look at number 20, the one you're starting on, 162 plus 0, that should be pretty easy for you. Then it moves on to 13 plus 12 equals blank plus 13. That's showing you the commutative property where they're switching the order. So you tell me which one was switched around. Number 22, blank plus 53 equals 93. If they gave us a missing number with addition, you think subtraction. So use subtraction to find that missing number. 23 is the same way, and 24. So those should be pretty simple. We definitely did those last year. 29 through 31 is using front end estimation. So that's where you add the front numbers and then you adjust the back numbers and add it all together. And 37 through 39 is adding and subtracting the normal way. So that's what you're going to work on for today. Your test will be on addition properties, rules of subtraction, just like that quiz we took. It will also be on front-end estimation and adding and subtracting, just regular. So that's what your test is on tomorrow. There's no homework tonight except to study. So I'm going to put that here. Homework tonight is to study. Go back and look at that quiz we took last week if you need to. Look back at last week's videos if you need to. Anything you need to help you study. So this is the end of Monday's video, and then Tuesday's video will be real short. Okay, this is the beginning of our Tuesday video. On today's video, we're just gonna real quick talk about your test. So today you have your test. It's due by 8 p.m. tonight. Make sure that you're reading over the instructions. Make sure you're paying attention to whether it's addition or subtraction. Make sure you pay attention to if it is front-end estimation or regular adding and subtracting. So that's all for today. There is no homework tonight since you had your test today. And that's it. So I'll see you on Wednesday for chapter 2. All right, this is our Wednesday video. We're going to start chapter 2 today. So in your book, we're on page 24, and that's your hardback book. So if you look at that with me, it starts with thousands. So we're going to start on decimals a little bit. Look at the top. So here is building a model house. The directions state that the window should be 750 thousandths of an inch wide. In order to describe this to his friend, Sahir will say the number name for this decimal. What is the number name for 0.750? Parts of whole numbers such as tenths, hundredths, and thousands can be written using a fraction or decimal notation. So they say 100th. If we were to write it out like this, can also be written as 1 over 100 or 0.01. All of those things mean the same thing. They're all equivalent. 100th can be written as a fraction or as a decimal like this. So what we're going to focus on is the decimal form. If each hundredth in a whole is split into 10 equal parts, there will be 10 times as many whole parts. Each part is 1,000th of the whole. So for the thousandths, we can write it as 1,000, and that's kind of how you would say it out loud, has that TH. In fraction form, it would be 1 over 1,000, and in decimal form, it would be 0.001. So look at right here where we have the thousand. 1,000 has 3 zeros at the end, and then in decimal form, it has 3 places. after the decimal. So that's an easy way to kind of remember what the places are in the decimals. Same things for hundredth. 2 zeros in hundredth, 2 decimal places after the 0. So if we look at the little chart they give you, it has standard form and number name. They give us 0.003. We would read that as 3 thousandths. They give us 1.065. We would read that as 1 and 65 thousandths. So I'm going to clear this so I can show you this real quick. If you write 1.065, this decimal right here we read as the word and. So we would say that as 1 and 65 thousandths. We know it's thousandths because it has 1, 2, 3 places here. We don't say that 0, so we just say 65 thousandths. If we have one like this, 0.278, I look at what number this is, 278, and then how many places? 1, 2, 3, so I know it's thousandths, 278 thousandths. Okay, so let's look at what you're going to have to do today. I'm not going to have you do all of this today. We're going to split it up because it's way too much to try to cram in on one day. So we're going to do a little bit of writing fractions to decimals. Then we're going to do name to decimal, and then the number name, and that's what we're going to do for today. So if I gave you something like 6/1000, and I told you to write that in a decimal form, I would first put 0, decimal, and I know it has to have 3 spaces, but I only have one whole number up here. So I'm going to put 0, 0, 6. I don't want to put 0.600 because you don't really say these zeros. So that would be like saying 6/10. So that won't work. You have to put the 2 zeros before the 6. Same thing if I was doing 5/100. I'm going to put my 0, decimal. I know it's going to have 2 places because I have 2 zeros after the decimal. I only have my whole number 5 here, so I'm going to put a 0 before it, 5 hundredths. Let's try one like this. If I gave you 945/1000, I'm going to put my 0, decimal. I know it has 3 places after the decimal, and this number has 3 numbers, so I can just fill it in like this, 945 thousandths. Okay, let's do one like this. If they give you 3, sorry, I'm going to write this in words, 3 and 2 thousandths, they want you to take that and write it into a decimal or standard form. So the first thing I would look at is that word and. That means that's going to be my decimal. The 3 comes before the word and, so it's going to be my whole number over here. 2 thousandths. Thousandths means I'm going to have 3 spaces after my decimal. There's only 2 thousandths, so I'm going to make all these other numbers 0. So let's kind of look at this again. 3 over here is going to be your whole number. If it comes on this side of the decimal, it's a whole number. This side of the decimal means it's less than 1. This is your 10th place. I'm going to use red actually. That's your 10th place. This is your 100th place. And this is your 1000th place. That's why 2 has to go in this place because it's the thousandths. So let's try another one. They might give you one like 25 hundredths. So for this one, there's no word and, so I'm not going to have a whole number and a decimal. I'm still going to have my decimal, just not a whole number on that side. 25 hundredths. Hundredths tells me I'm going to have two spaces, and then 25 is two numbers, so it fills in right here, 25 hundredths. So they're pretty simple once you get used to them. The easiest part is this part we're about to do right here. Write the number name for each decimal. So if I gave you this decimal, 3.13, we would write that as 3. That's taking care of that. For the decimal, I put the word and then I look at what this number is. It's 13, so I'm going to say 3 and 13. It has two spaces, so we're going to call it hundredths. Okay, so all you do is take apart this number to make it into word form. This part right here is going to be my whole number. The decimal is the word and then 13, I just rewrite right here. And then for hundredths, I know it's hundredths because I have two decimal places after the decimal, okay? So let's try another one. We're gonna write Wednesday so we don't forget. Let's try 0.278. So for this one, I don't need to write a whole number and I don't need to write the word and because this is 0. So I'm going to start with 278. I'm going to write 278, and it has 3 places, 1, 2, 3, so I know that's thousandths. Okay, so that's what you're going to do today. So let's look at what we're going to do. You're going to be doing page 24. You're going to do numbers 1, 2, 6, 7, 9 through 11. So 1, 2, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11. That's your classwork. For homework, you're going to do workbook, page 17. Okay, so this is the end of Wednesday's video. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay, so this is Thursday's video. We're going to move on with what we learned yesterday. So we're going to be on page 24 and 25 today. We're going to look at equivalent decimals. So let's look at equivalent decimals and standard form. Yesterday, you took a decimal and you wrote it into word form. Now you're going to do the opposite. So they're going to give you some that are going to be in words and you're going to need to make the decimal. So they might give you 33 thousandths. Okay, there's no word and, so I know there's not going to be a whole number. So I'm going to put my decimal. Thousandths means it's going to have 3 spaces. 33 is going to fill in right here, 33 thousandths, and the 0 is going to be here. We need our 0 before the 33 because in decimals, the zeros at the end can be kept off. So if we kept them off, it would only be 33, it would only be 33 hundredths, sorry, not 33 thousandths. So we need that 0 here right after the decimal for thousandths. Okay, so let's look at another one they might give us. They could give you 3 and 2 hundredths. Make sure you have that TH. So 3 and tells me I'm going to have 3 as my whole number and as my decimal. Hundredths means I'm going to have 2 spaces. So I'm going to put my 2 over here in the hundredths place and 0 over here in the ones place. You fill that 0 in. So 3 and 2 hundredths. Now let's look at equivalent decimals. These are the pretty easy ones that all 5th graders love. Equivalent decimals means that it's the same, and it has to do with that 0 I just told you. So if they give you 1 8/10, that's how you would read that, and they wanted you to make an equivalent decimal, you can make that an equivalent decimal by adding a 0 onto the end. You can add as many zeros as you want, and it would still be the same decimal. That's because in decimals, we don't need those extra zeros. So we still read this as 1 8/10. So if I'm asking you to make an equivalent decimal, the easiest way is to put a 0 at the end. So same for this one. They might give you 0.05. We read that as 5 hundredths. All you have to do to make that an equivalent decimal is put a 0 at the end. That's it. There's no kind of math you have to do or any of that. If they give you one like this, and you want to make it equivalent, you can do that in 2 ways. You could either say 10.400, or I could cross out that 0 and say 10 4/10. Either one is equivalent to 10.40. So equivalent fractions just means to add zeros on, or if it already has a 0 at the end, you can cross it out. So these are pretty simple. So let's look at what you're going to do today for classwork and homework. Don't go crazy with the zeros on them, but you could literally put a million zeros and it would still be equivalent. That's why 5th graders usually like these. So for classwork today, you're going to do page 25, 19 through 21. That's where you're going to write it in a decimal form. And then 25 to 30, where you're going to make an equivalent decimal for each one. Homework is going to be workbook, page 18, okay? You're going to practice a little bit more of what we did each of these days. Tomorrow you'll have a little quiz on these, and it'll be just like this, and then that'll be done. All right, Friday's video. Today you have a little quiz on Shobi. Make sure you look at the directions. Make sure you are counting over your spaces. So let's look at that. If I have this number, I would read that as 1 123 thousandths. So let's look at the place value for these. This is your whole number. That 1 is my tenths. That 2 is my hundredths. And 3 is thousandths. Okay, so make sure you know that. Whole number, tenths, hundredths, thousandths. The bigger it gets this way, the smaller it actually is. Remember that if I make it 1 123 thousandths, I can add all of those zeros and it would still be equivalent. So that's what you need to know for today's quiz. After you take it, there is no homework because it's Friday. Let me know if you have any questions, and have a good weekend.